Morning.
Good morning.
Hey.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. Do you hear me?
Yes, now I do hear you better.
Sure.
Yes, perfect.
Hey, good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay-ish. Didn't have the best night, but I'm good to go.
Okay. Well, I've got a cup of tea ready. And
Yes, water.
oh, great. And I'm super ready for some girl talk this morning.
Yes, let's do it.
So today's topic is women's health, fertility, and specifically PCOS, so polycystic ovary syndrome. But I think that this episode will be super interesting to every woman, whether or not you have PCOS, or maybe you struggle with some PMS, irregular cycles, or maybe you in general just want to optimize your cycle and your health as a woman. Um, yeah, in my opinion, every woman should know about these things and learn about their body and their hormones, because it's so important to know how we function as women, right? Um, and there's no one better to have this chat with than you, Daphne. You also facilitated some workshops or a workshop for my one-to-one clients very recently, and you're also going to give another two in October. So on the menstrual cycle and PMS, that's what we talked about last week. And in October, we will talk about more how to track your cycle and also gut health and things like that. But before we start, who are you and what are you doing?
Yes. Well, thank you for inviting me for this podcast episode, first of all. And my name is Daphne Medema, and I have my own place where I help women with PCOS, fertility issues, or issues around the menstrual cycle. And I have different kind of options how I help them. The most used one is the one-on-one coaching, which includes always lab research and a personalized plan that's totally natural. So we're going to look at nutrition, exercise, stress management, sleep, supplements, everything that is including the natural way.
Yeah. And you have PCOS yourself, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your journey with fertility and PCOS and hormones?
Yes, of course. Yeah, so the first thing I always think is difficult is like, hey, do I still have PCOS? Because I do a lot of DNA research as well, and I check my own DNA, and there is definitely a lot of genes in my DNA that I'm carrying that makes the chance to develop PCOS symptoms very big. And that's why I also struggled with a lot of symptoms a few years ago. But right now, with all the adjustments I was able to take, I don't have any PCOS symptoms anymore. And if I go to the hospital, for example, to do some blood research or to check my ovaries, they will not see any sign of PCOS. So yes, I do still, have the PCOS genes inside of me, but I would always like say like, hey, I don't have PCOS anymore. And the journey to get where I am today was quite long, quite hard. The beginning was, I think, a long phase where I was a young girl and I started to have my period, but my period was always very painful, very heavy. It was not once every 28 days, but it was actually 1 week of bleeding, 1 week of no bleeding, 1 week of bleeding, etc. But I was also struggling with acne, hair loss, male hair growth on my chin, my belly, and the very difficulty losing weight and always feeling bloated and having a lot of pain in my stomach. And I really wanted to figure out what was going on, but they never really found anything. So I think I was struggling with finding a diagnosis, like what is going on, for a few years until it got worse and worse and worse. And one of my doctors actually thought that it might be an STD. Is that the right word in English? So to let me check on one of those, the specialist said like, oh no, I don't think this is going on at all, but there is something else going on with your womb and with your ovaries. And that was the first moment that we were doing some research in the right direction. So after a long period of, didn't know about what was going on in my body, I finally got the diagnosis of PCOS. And it was nice to finally know what it was. But on the other hand, it was also quite shocking to me, especially because I didn't know anything about PCOS back then. And the only thing the doctor told me was like, hey, listen, I don't know if you have a wish to become a mother right now, but it's going to be super difficult for you to do that on a natural way. So don't try. Don't even try. If you want to become a mom, just come back to us and you will go into a process, a fertility process. And right now, there is actually nothing you can do except taking the birth control pill. But that was actually just a thing that I stopped taking because I felt horrible taking the birth control. So that was the moment that all these questions I had inside of me were not answered and lighted up a fire inside that I needed to find these answers by myself. So I did a lot of research, like what is PCOS, what can cause it, and what can you do? Change big lifestyle habits, for example, to change it. But there was so much information and everything was different. It was not really clear. So I decided to test everything on myself, just make like a list of everything I found. And that was like a journey of 5-6 years. Mm. But after all these years, I finally cracked the code. And now I'm here. And I am, I think, the living proof that it's possible to live totally free of PCOS symptoms.
Yeah, a really beautiful story. I think that gives a lot of women hope, myself included, of course. Yeah. And you're helping so many women through the work that you do. So that's incredible. To dial it back a little bit, because you're mentioning some symptoms and stuff of PCOS. So what exactly is it and what are these symptoms? Maybe we can deep dive a little bit more into exactly what you might experience, because I think a lot of women might not even know that they have PCOS. Myself, I didn't know, right? I got diagnosed as well back in November last year, I think it was. I had my thoughts that, yeah, it might be PCOS, but it took a long time for me to start to think that that might be the cause of my irregular periods and the other symptoms that I had. So I think some women might not even know, but they might recognize some of the symptoms that occur. Okay. So what is it and what might you experience if you have PCOS?
Yes, so PCOS is actually not really a disease. It's more like a combination of symptoms. And if we're going to have a close look at what it is, there is also, like, it's not totally clear for everyone, also not in the healthcare, what is actually with every woman with PCOS, like the same, what is the base? Because every woman is unique and every woman can experience different kind of symptoms when they struggle with PCOS. What I discovered is that every woman with PCOS has too much androgens in their body. And androgens is like the big name of all the male hormones like testosterone. So that is one thing. Everyone with PCOS has that. And the androgen overload is causing symptoms like the male growth, the hair growth on the chin, the cheeks, the chest, the belly, but also can cause hair loss on the head, acne. But besides that, to get like the diagnosis, you also need to have at least two other things. One is that they see on the X-ray, the echography, that you have cysts on the ovaries, and both is possible, that you don't have a regular period. And with that, I mean, you have a period less than 8 times a year. That's actually how they put it together. But if you're going to have a look at this, it can also mean that you are struggling with irregular periods, but there are no cysts on your ovaries, right? So if they only checked the inside of your ovaries and your womb, that's the only way they got you the diagnosis of PCOS. It might not actually be PCOS. It's important to do blood research on the side as well to check the androgens. How I like to explain what PCOS is that the body actually think it's best to not have a regular ovulation. And the period in the menstrual cycle, the ovulation, is the period that we are, as a woman, fertile, right? So the egg can be fertilized and we get the chance to get pregnant. If the body, the brain, how I like to explain it, thinks that it's not a good moment to become pregnant, it will sometimes try to help us and postpone the ovulation. If the ovulation is postponed, the period, the menstrual period as well, because that always comes after the ovulation. But women who don't have irregular periods, that can also be because sometimes you can have a bleeding without having an ovulation before. The other way around, it's not possible, right? So if you have an ovulation and the egg is not fertilized, you will have your period. But sometimes if you don't have an ovulation, the endometrium lining is continuing to grow, and the body will automatically at some point think like, hey, it's time to lose it anyway, because it cannot grow any further and it will also not be beneficial for you. So that's also why some women with PCOS still have like regular bleedings, but it's actually not a real bleeding. Those kind of bleedings are also like quite heavy and painful, or with how I explained it in the beginning, I had a bleeding like 1 week, 1 week not, 1 week yes, 1 week not. Things like that can also appear. And that thing in your menstrual cycle can cause other symptoms. For example, a very important one, I think that it's not a common one that's communicated by doctors or on the internet often enough. If you don't have a regular ovulation, you don't have regular progesterone production. And progesterone is a very, very important hormone to make you feel stress resistant and to make you feel super relaxed and happy with yourself. So that's why a lot of women with PCOS struggle with anxiety, feeling stressed all the time, difficulties falling asleep. That is a very important one. But also, if you don't have regular ovulation, the first phase of the cycle is actually too long, how we would like to see it, and that can cause other things as well, like difficulty losing weight, acne, hair loss. All the other symptoms can occur because of that thing as well.
So in that sense, it's very different than just experiencing PMS, for example, because some of the symptoms I think might overlap a little bit, like if you have bloating or you're moody or emotional, anxiety, things like that. But the two are very different concepts, actually.
Yeah, they are a little bit the same, because with PMS symptoms, it's also related to the progesterone production usually, or the estrogen production. So if you have PMS symptoms, it is also like giving a sign, your body is giving you a sign that there is or too much estrogen in your body, or also not enough progesterone at the moment.
Yeah, and I think these two hormones are so interesting. And the more that I get into this whole topic, I realized how important they both are. But what was really mind-blowing to me was the role of progesterone that you're describing, how important it is, and how we have to produce enough of it for so many reasons, for that to be able to manage stress or to handle stress, but also in order to actually carry a pregnancy to term.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Progesterone, I think you mentioned last week that we can never really have too much of it.
Yes. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is also something why I strongly believe that the birth control medication is not a solution for PCOS, right? It can only help block the androgen production. So it's like a temporary release of some symptoms like acne, for example, or hair loss. But the point of the birth control pill is to don't have an ovulation, right? So we are missing the body identical progesterone when we are using the birth control pill. So in my opinion, it's a little bit weird that we get that advice, because it is, temporarily can make some annoying symptoms, go away. But once you stop taking the birth control pill, they will reappear, and sometimes even worse than before. But when you are taking the birth control pill, it makes the other symptoms, like feeling very anxious or very stressed, even worse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and women take birth control, of course, for so many reasons, right? It's not just the women with PCOS that get.
It's not just birth control, right? We see it as a medication for all problems that women have with her body. Sometimes I feel like that, like, oh, you have hormonal problems? Here, take the birth control pill. But it's not a solution, right? It's more like a blister that we are putting on the wound.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you just take it for the sake of, oh, I don't want to get pregnant, right? Then I think that a lot of women don't realize that one, the bleed that you get on the pill is actually not your own, it's not your period. And then I think also we don't realize the importance of actually having an ovulation. So
Exactly. Yeah. I was
so
feeling exactly the same when I was taking the birth control pill. I also thought like, oh, I have a period every month. It's all going all right. And that's also, I think they do it to give us the idea, right, that everything is all right. And I think it is also good to regularly lose the endometrium lining because that's how our body does it by itself as well, usually. But yes, indeed, it's not. I don't think it's a solution for hormonal issues, right? I think that every woman should be informed very well and checked as well, because the chances of developing diseases with your heart or bloodstream, right, they increase when you take the birth control pill. And this is also something that has to do with progesterone, because there are progesterone receptors on your heart and vessels as well. So if you don't produce your own progesterone, also the heart and everything around it will be affected by it. So I think that we should check better, like, hey, also here, is there some heart issues in your family, or is it genetic related? Because maybe in that case, the hormonal birth control pill is not the best option for you. And besides that, I think it is super important and empowering if every woman should have been told, like, okay, you can choose yourself, right? But also know that it also has side effects. And that are these and these and these and these. Are you accepting these? Like, what fits best in your life? You know, I think we are acting a little bit too easy around the birth control pills. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I went on birth control when I was very young, very, very young. And I think
Yes, same here.
common as well.
Yeah.
And for a very long time, I was just thinking, oh, how nice, I don't have a period, because I think I went on the pill that just didn't give me a bleed whatsoever.
Yeah.
So because you have those, and then you also have those when you take a stop week, and then you get your bleeding. But I just thought it was, oh, how nice, I don't need to deal with that, hassle of having a period. And I think that's also really common to think that way. But now that I am older and wiser, I also know how important having a period is. And like I said, having an ovulation, right, is super important. Having a period is important. It's our fifth vital sign, right, having a period. And so just having a regular, healthy menstrual cycle is, like you said, very empowering and something that we as women should really embrace, in my opinion, because a lot of very great things come with it. And I think we have talked about it also one time, where we don't need to go into the different phases like too much, but during, a certain phase, you might be a little bit more going inwards and like you're reflecting and you feel things. And then in the other part of your cycle, you might be a little bit more outgoing and social, and it's more the time to start projects and stuff like that. And I think it's when we are on the birth control pill, for example, we numb ourselves a little bit from these hormonal fluctuations that we have, while they can be so beneficial to us if we know about them and we embrace them and we learn to live a little bit in tune with our cycles and our bodies, right? So
absolutely.
numbing all that out by going on the birth control, or thinking like I did, oh, so nice, I don't have a cycle.
Yes. And
It's a shame because we have
totally agree.
superpowers as women, right? And we just need to learn how to embrace it and deal with it and understand ourselves. I think that's the key, to understand what's going on in our bodies.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. But that's also the thing, right? We don't learn these kind of things when we are younger in school. How I got taught about the menstrual cycle was like, all right, this is like a very annoying period in the month, and it's going to be painful, and you're going to feel not yourself, and everyone will get annoyed with you. That kind of feeling, like that. Also, sometimes people might say, like, oh, you are on your period. I think, right? How you act like that. But we forget that it's such an important element of the female body, right? Exactly what you say, like we are numbing everything. which can be nice, right? Because not all the phases of the menstrual cycle are my favorites, not at all. But I think they have important functions. And if you understand the function and why your body is doing this physically, you will have a completely different look at it. You will have a look at it and say, like, oh, wow, this is actually amazing, how our body is working and what we are capable of, every cycle again. But also the mental thing around it, what you said beautifully, like we can use it as superpowers. That's also how I would like to look at it now, because we are so different, men and women. And I think it is for a reason as well. Like men, they have their own pros, like they're super good in kind of areas where they can help us and support us as women. But we also have so many pros. And I think it's really linked to the hormonal cycle we go through. So men, it's like 24 hours, women, 28 to 35-ish day cycle. And we experience different kind of hormones and emotions in each cycle, which really can have like a very important function in, managing our life or relationships. I think that's actually the superpower of women. Yeah. So it's actually a shame that we are trying to numb it down because we're losing those powers then.
Yeah, definitely. And I think when we talk about these symptoms, whether we talk about PMS or we talk about PCOS, right? Because both can come with quite annoying symptoms that we don't want to deal with, of course. I think when you also mentioned low mood and, understanding ourselves, and I think when we know about our cycles and we can see these patterns and maybe that during certain parts of our cycle, we have less energy or we are, feeling a little more self-critical or whatnot, that we can actually also have a bit more self-compassion towards ourselves when we know that we know the reason for it. But with that said, I think it's important to mention that if you are dealing with very severe PMS symptoms or you struggle with PCOS, you actually don't have to live with it, because that's also something I think that's been told. I mean, you say it yourself as well. Oh, that's just how you are. Like, oh, are you on your period or what? When you are a little bit irritated or you go through certain things. And I think it's been so drilled in us that that's just how we are as women.
Yes. Yeah.
But actually, you said it in the beginning too, and I've experienced it myself now as well. Like, we don't have to live with these symptoms. And that's where your work comes in so beautifully as well, because you take that more natural route. You don't put your ladies on birth control. You try to get to the root cause of what's going on, because, like you also said, it's a way for our body to speak to us and let us know that something is off. And with certain tools, we can actually deal with these symptoms and possibly even heal from many of them. So that's very important to know. Yeah.
Yeah, I always like to say, and that's also the power of lab research, I think, like to show you like, okay, so this is actually going on inside of your body, but it's not really you, like if you feel super anxious or if you're like super easily angry, which is also can be a symptom of blood sugar that is going up and down all the time, which has effect on your mood and your hormone level as well. But it's not always who you are, right, as a person. And it can be so nice to see like, okay, so this is how I feel right now because of this and this and this. And if we're gonna adjust this and this and this, you don't have to feel like that. But it's a little bit difficult nowadays because unfortunately, we're not really stimulated to eat healthy, and take good care of ourselves. We live in a very stressful environment where everyone is needing a lot of us and put a lot of pressure on goals and continue, go, go, go. And also a lot of foods that we can buy are not very beneficial for your menstrual cycle, for your hormones, or for your genes if you carry the PCOS genes with you. So yes, it's not always easy, but it is possible, yes, as long as you know what your body needs.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, if you're now someone listening to this and you know that you have PCOS, the things we're going to talk about are maybe more like generic advice, of course, that can, benefit you tremendously and help you so much on the way to deal with your symptoms. But if you really want to get to the root cause, then these lab research, these tests that you are mentioning are really important, of course, to do. But correct me if I'm wrong, I think that when you work with someone, you work on 5 different pillars. I think it is nutrition, lifestyle, exercise, stress, and also the environment. Am I missing something there?
No, this is
No?
yeah.
Yeah. And if we, because you already started talking about nutrition a little bit, I think that's often where you start as well, right? With nutrition.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yes.
What are some nutritional strategies maybe that you advise to implement?
Yes. So I go through a lot of diaries of women who tell me what they eat on a weekly basis, right? And there are like two very important compounds that I see a lot is that they don't eat enough protein. So to eat protein has so many benefits because we need protein to produce progesterone. Progesterone is made of protein, of fats as well, cholesterol, other stuff, but protein is very important. So besides that, also we need protein to actually make our body do all the functions it needs. Example, the liver, that is also a very important part of activating hormones, needs protein to do its function properly. So protein is important to, give your body the right nutrition it needs, but it's also very helpful to keep your blood sugar stable, which I also see with a lot of women that I work with, but a lot of people in general, that we eat a lot of carbs usually. And when we eat carbs, there is sugar, glucose released in our bloodstream, and the pancreas is going to make the hormone insulin to grab the glucose and transport it to the cell so that inside the cell, it can be turned into energy. And we experience energy and we have energy to, do things. So if your blood sugar is stable, it means that the amount of glucose is like doable, that is released in the bloodstream. It's going very smoothly in, the insulin is produced and it's going very smoothly out. If the blood sugar is unstable, there is like a huge amount of glucose at once coming free in the bloodstream. And that is very stressful for the pancreas because it gets like an alarm, like an error, like, okay, this is not good. We should produce a lot of insulin. And then the blood sugar goes down again. But that's also very stressful for the body. That's the low blood sugar. And then we are going to experience like sugar cravings or, like feeling a little bit shaky between the meals. This is also a very important part in managing PCOS symptoms because insulin resistance is a very important root cause sometimes of for PCOS. And you can easily solve this problem to eat more protein with every meal. Of course, there is a difference between the carbs that you're eating as well, right? So high refined sugar, cookies, candy, I think we all know that that's not the best option for foods to take. But if you eat like normal carbs, because vegetables also contain carbs and fruits as well, but try to combine them with protein. This makes you help not only to stabilize your blood sugar all the time, but also to increase your protein intake during the day. Another very easy way, or well, easy maybe is not the right word, because I see a lot of women don't eat seafood. And seafood like fish, shrimps, everything that's living in the sea contains a lot of protein. So it's a very easy way. That's what I would say, like an easy way to increase your protein intake. But besides the protein, the seafood also contains a lot of omega-3 fatty acids and minerals. And those two I also see with a lot of women who don't have enough of them. Mm-hmm. And the omega-3 is a very, very, very important one as well, because it's actually helping our body to make the metabolism and the detoxification process smooth and easy. Also, we need enough omega-3 to let our brain function properly. And our brains are very important in the total hormone production as well. And another thing is that a lot of foods that we eat nowadays can make our omega-6 increase a little bit. And omega-6 can cause a little inflammation, and omega-3 turn the inflammation down. So you just want to make sure that you have enough omega-3 in your body so there will never come an inflammation, which is another very important root cause of PCOS. Mm-hmm. And the minerals as well. We need minerals for every process in the body. And I think that we are in general not eating enough minerals. And seafood is a very easy way to get more protein, minerals, omega-3. But also fruits, vegetables, they contain a lot of minerals as well.
Yeah. So focusing on protein is something that I also see so much in my clients, that they need to switch from that mindset where there is indeed a lot of carbs on the plate and not so much, if any, protein actually.
Yeah.
And I think a good way to go about it is to just make that switch in your mind, right? To, like we said, prioritize protein, making sure, do I always have a protein source on my plate? Yeah, with every meal, preferably. And then filling up on veggies. And I think also another way to look at it might be focusing on the quality of your food, because you also mentioned the quality or the types of carbs that we're eating. So, and I think if we start to focus on the quality of the food that we're eating and where the food is coming from, and maybe minimizing processed food and stuff like that, we are automatically also going to choose high protein sources, and also these more beneficial carbs for us. What is enough protein, in your opinion, for ladies with PCOS or fertility issues?
Yes, that's a good question because, first of all, I think it's good to, track a little bit to know for yourself, like, hey, how many protein am I eating? Because I notice that it is difficult to get the right amount. And sometimes we think, oh, we need enough protein. But in the end, if you're going to really have a look at it and track it, it's not the case. And how many protein you need depends on the way you eat. Like, are you a vegetarian or vegan, or do you eat animal-based foods as well? Do you work out a lot? Are you pregnant? So there are multiple factors, but I would like to say, and this is a lot, but I think if you go for that amount of protein every day, you are settled for, multiple ways of lifestyle eating, is 1 gram for each kilogram of your own body weight. And then usually they say officially it's the kilograms that is not included the fat. How do you say the percentage of fat in the body? But if you don't, or if you're not able to measure that, then that's fine. But if you're going to have a look at that, you will maybe see like, oh, I need a lot of protein in the day. So my advice is to calculate for yourself a little bit, like how much grams of protein do I need each day? And then track it with an app. You have a lot of free useful apps where you can, track everything you eat, and it will calculate by itself how many protein is in each meal. And just track it for 1 week and see like, hey, in 1 week, do I eat enough protein? If not, really try to focus on that the next week, right? And track it again until it comes natural for you. And yes, then you will definitely experience the benefits of it, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think indeed what you say, normally we might think we're having enough protein, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that 90% of people actually don't have enough protein. So we can always eat more. And for those who might be listening now, because I have a lot of clients, followers who might not want to track their food, if you're okay with it, that's a perfect strategy. I definitely recommend. If not, I would say just focus on having 4 protein sources per day, roughly 100 to 150 grams per meal, 4 times a day. And then you should be well on your way for sure with protein. You're also mentioning carbs. And I know we've spoken about this a lot as well, that because there's a myth, right, for PCOS or in general, right? Like if you want to get healthy or you want to lose weight or whatever, that low carb is the way to go. And there's a lot of talk about protein, how important protein is. And even though we might not always reach our protein intake, I think it's a known fact that protein is important. But carbs, and especially for fertility, because that was something that was very new to me a while ago, how important carbs are for a healthy menstrual cycle. So also for PCOS or fertility, if you want to get pregnant or you just want to have a healthy, regular cycle. Talk to us a little bit about that, just briefly.
Of course. Yeah, so all the 3 micronutrients are super important for us. Yeah. For men as well, but for women especially, because also when I'm going to have a look at the carbs are actually providing us for a lot of energy, right? So if we are going to produce energy in our cells and in our body, the number 1 source is glucose. The second one is fats. And the third one is protein. You don't want to reach the protein part because then your body is going to break down the muscles and the tissues. You don't want it. But switching between sugar and fat is perfect, right? So sugar first, fats after. If you are going to skip the carbs completely, that will give your body not the right amount of energy. And right, we talked about ovulation before, which we need to produce progesterone. If you want to get pregnant or not, you need it to feel at your best. But the body doesn't know if you want to get pregnant or not, right? So each cycle, there is one egg released, ready to go, ready to, evolve into a pregnancy. But maybe you can imagine that being pregnant requires a lot of energy, right? You're producing a new life inside of your belly. You're building a human body inside of you. So you don't not only need energy for yourself and all the body functions, but also for another person that you're creating. So what the body does is scanning your body before you get your ovulation. Like, hey, do you have enough energy and enough nutrients inside of your body to be able to be pregnant? So we need actually an overflow, abundance of energy and nutrients in the female body to have a good fertility, to have a regular ovulation, and to have a problemless menstrual cycle. If you're going to skip the carbs, there is a moment that your body will recognize it as, hey, there is not enough energy inside of the body. So we're going to postpone the ovulation with all the symptoms that might occur from there. So I understand why there is a myth of, eating no carbs, because the theory is that it will make you more insulin sensitive. And I mentioned it briefly earlier in the podcast that insulin resistance is one of the root causes of PCOS, but not for every woman. And what is happening there is that actually the cells are not really capable of getting the glucose inside of the cells to produce energy. So the theory is like, let's get all the carbs and the sugar away from the cells because they're not able to make energy from it. And then the body maybe will get back in the own state by itself. Could be. But with a lot of women, especially with PCOS, I don't really see that happen. I see it's very stressful for the body and is actually making sometimes the ovulation to, postpone further and further. I think instead of, removing all the carbs from the diet, it's better to focus on what does your body need to get an ovulation? What does your body need to be able to produce the right amount of energy again in the cells? Of course, there is a big difference between carbs and carbs, right? So what I also briefly mentioned before, you have carbs that is coming from brownies or coming from other types of cake or cookies or candy, that's so high in refined sugar. This is absolutely causing the spike in your blood sugar because it's too much. So, of course, try to avoid these as much as possible. But also we need to live, so it's not necessary to never be able to eat a brownie again, right? Combined with protein to do some damage control. But I think that in general, when I talk about carbs, a lot of people think about rice, pasta, bread, and absolutely that's also true. But carbs are also in fruits and in vegetables. So when we are going to talk about this, I think when you are increasing your protein intake, you will immediately eat less pasta and rice on the plate, which is good. The other important part here is, do you maybe have some food intolerances, right? So a lot of women I work with have an intolerances for gluten. So bread and pasta is, for that reason, not the best choice for carbs. Some women have like a very high amount of toxins in the body. Then sometimes I also advise not to eat rice for other reasons. But in general, it is good to eat carbs, but try to combine it with protein and try to get the most carbs out of fruits and vegetables because they also contain fibers, which really help to maintain a stable blood sugar as well. They have lots of vitamins and minerals and all the good stuff. And let's be honest, rice, pasta, and bread is more like a filling piece instead of the nutrient-rich, dense foods that we can also choose from. So, I think it's better to fill half of your plate with veggies and the other part of protein, a little bit of fat, instead of eating a full plate of pasta with creamy sauce and a few tomatoes, right? I think that is like, if we're going to look at, do you have enough protein, enough vitamins, minerals and stuff, the other option is better.
For sure. And I think a great carb source is sweet potatoes.
Absolutely, yes.
That's a really good one for fertility as well. So have to give a shout out to the sweet potato because
sweet potato, yeah, and all the other things that grow under the ground. Like I really, really like pastinac as well. I don't know if that's the right way to say it in English.
Parsnip, I think.
Or red beets, like all the veggies, which is like contain starches as well. But then in a good way, it's a better way for the body to process it compared to bread, for example.
Yeah, indeed. And I think you also see sometimes dairy intolerances. So if that's something you experience as well, it might be a good idea to try to limit dairy because that can be inflammatory as well. So lots of great takeaways there with nutrition. I think to summarize it, prioritize your protein, try to increase your protein across the day. Maybe start off with a high protein breakfast. Try to balance your plate. Of course, we need all three macronutrients. Don't be afraid of carbs because we definitely need them. But balance your plate. So choose protein first, fill up with your half plate filled with veggies, and then you can have a carb source on the side and some healthy fats on top of it, avocado, nuts, that type of thing. But yeah, I think takeaway is don't be afraid of carbs. There's really no need, and your body needs to feel that there is enough energy coming in, and that's not just from the carbs, but just calories in general. We need to eat in abundance, and your body needs to feel that it's a safe space to create a baby.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. Which I think can be a little bit tricky, right? Because some people might want to lose body weight. And then to say that you need calories and carbs in abundance might go against what they want, but then what you want and what you need might not be the same thing, right? But you already mentioned it before that with PCOS, you can also have trouble losing weight. Do you have any specific recommendations targeted to someone with PCOS who needs to lose body weight? Because, and this might be another myth, right, that everybody with PCOS have overweight, which is really not true.
Yeah.
But let's say that you do. Let's say that you do have some weight to lose.
Yeah.
I think that can also be beneficial, right, to balance your hormones, actually. How would you go about that? Because you also mentioned it can be really hard, struggling with fatigue and energy and stuff. So doing all the things that we need to do to lose body weight can be very challenging. And then again, creating a safe space for the body, like how do they go together?
How do you combine it all? Yes, I completely understand the question. And first of all, also something I would like to mention is that what I also notice, and it always makes me very sad actually, is because the myth is that everyone with PCOS has overweight, it does need to lose weight. And I notice that this also has been said to a lot of women by doctors saying like, yeah, first lose weight or just go lose weight, when they don't have an issue with their weight at all. So I also notice that a lot of women feel like, oh, I want to lose weight or I need to lose weight because of this and this and this. And they don't have a clear view to their own body anymore, right? It's like they look into the mirror and they feel overweight. Well, they're actually not. So also something that I wanted to say here, like, okay, this definitely doesn't count for everyone, right? Everyone has a different kind of body composition and the composition that makes you feel healthiest and, be your healthiest. But all right, so if you want to lose weight, but you don't want to, skip the carbs and you want to require enough energy in the body, yes. So first advice is try to eat as natural as possible, right? The more foods that are processed or, that are, with a lot of additives. And so that is actually the food that makes your hormones out of balance, that makes your body like, what is happening? We don't know how to process this. So the more natural foods you eat, you don't necessarily have to be afraid of the amount of calories you take, right? So I always say to them, like, stop counting the calories. Try to focus on the foods that are nutrient dense, that gives you what your body needs, and then your body will automatically know how to handle it. So try to eat as natural as possible. If you want to lose weight and you feel like you tried everything, right? You go to the gym, or maybe you feel way too tired to go to the gym, right? I also understand it, because sometimes you're really missing the hormones to, get the energy, you feel motivated enough. And when you feel like, okay, I eat healthy, I do all the stuff right, what is going on here? It might be that have become insulin resistant, so that your body is not really able to get enough energy from sugar and stays in the sugar burning state, cannot make the switch to the fat burning state. Not because of the foods you eat, but it might be stress related, right? So if you are constantly under an amount of stress, emotionally, mentally, or physically, your body will automatically make you a little bit insulin resistant. Because when your body experiences stress, the brain automatically think that you are in danger, because we are still quite the same programmed as we were like back in the days. We didn't have like financial stress or work goals or deadlines. We needed to be afraid of like animals that were going to attack us. So our body is responding the same way. So if you are on a chronic stress, the brain needs so much sugar to stay focused and to be able to help you to increase your chances to survive. So it's like an automatic result of the body to make a lot of parts insulin resistant. So you need more sugar, so the brain can continue doing its work. So then it's more like an address to the stress. Like, do you feel stressed? And what is causing the stress at the moment? Can you write it down a little bit? Like, what moments of the day makes me feel stressed? Or do I carry too much weight on my shoulders at the moment? Another thing that I see very regularly is that we are sitting too much inside, right? If you don't go outside enough, the brain will also lose control a little bit. Like, what time of the day is it? And it can also make you feel, it can also cause insulin resistance. And the third thing is and that is maybe something that is a little bit more difficult to figure out for yourself. But I see that the detoxification process, the liver, for example, plays a huge role in the body to be able to go into the fat burning state. And that is because if there is too much toxins going through your bloodstream in your body, and the liver and all the other organs that are there to help the toxins remove from the body, but if there is too much toxins and they cannot remove the toxins on time, also the brain say, okay, we're going to help you, and we're going to put these toxins into fat cells. So these toxins are no longer harmful for you, and we store them there. But as long as there is still so much pressure on the detoxification organs, the brain will never give permission to burn those fat cells, because then all the toxins are released again, right? So what I said, also the liver needs enough protein, enough healthy fats like omega-3 to do its function. But sometimes it might also be beneficial to dive a little bit deeper in this with a specialist, like, hey, how is this happening and what can I do? But I think one tip that everyone can start with right away is to check, how many plastic do you use in your environment, right? Do you drink from plastic bottles? Do you use plastic, how do you say it, like storage kind of things for your food? Do you use a plastic board to cut your food? Try to eliminate as much as plastic from your environment, because it contains BPA. It's a molecule that is actually putting a lot of pressure on the liver. So maybe not the first link you put there, like plastics and difficulty losing weight, but it's very helpful to have a look at that as well.
Yeah, that's a big one. I think when it comes down to it, it's all about creating a happy body, right? That also dares to let go of any excess weight. And whether or not you have weight to lose or not, I think in general, for a healthy menstrual cycle and PCOS, it's all about creating that safe space for your body to thrive, and just a happy body, because a happy, relaxed, peaceful, centered body. And you really touched upon like many things there. I think the detoxification process is indeed maybe one that is a little, you need to go into some testing there, but it's really a big one, especially also if you, if you have PCOS, but also PMS, and you struggle with like bloating and swollen breasts, for example. That's your estrogen, right? That is not detoxified like properly. So you need to really support your detoxification process. But eliminating as much plastic and toxins in your environment as possible is super important. I remember when we started talking about that, it's such a huge thing and got me really overwhelmed. And I can imagine that many people feel that way regarding that topic, because everything we use always is normally full of toxins.
Yes.
And when you start diving into this, I
Yeah.
mean, you notice it's in your perfumes, it's in your scented candles. I love scented candles, so I was like, shit, you know.
Yeah.
You know, if you're using the plastic Tupperwares indeed, or you're drinking from a plastic bottle, it's the shower creams that you're using, everything.
I
So
know. Yeah.
insane. And I think it's a very underrated factor to look into. And you know, the tip that I give to my clients currently is like, just start slow. Just start looking into it. Maybe because a lot of people use Tupperwares that you mentioned, like the first thing to maybe switch out, like make that your plastic Tupperwares. If you're someone who meal preps a lot and like reheats food in the microwave and stuff a lot, that's like maybe where I would start. And then slowly try and see if you can exchange some products that you're using on your skin. What I did was, when my shower gel in the shower was finished, I replaced it with a natural one, you know. So just use the products that you're using until they run out, and then maybe try to slowly make a switch to more natural products, because that will help that detoxification process. So
absolutely, yeah. And one step at a time, right? There are so many aspects that might be influencing how you feel, and this is a part of it, but it's not. It doesn't necessarily has to be the start, right? So if it feels better to start with nutritional adjustments or exercise or going outside more, like make that a first a new habit, and then slowly, you know, go to other stuff, right? If you say like, I love scented candles, you know, there are like natural ones, or you can make your own, but just one step at a time, right? Because it can be super overwhelming, and once you take a deeper dive in it, it's even more overwhelming. And then you're like, exactly what I said earlier, like it's like the environment is making it us a little bit difficult, right, to make good choices for ourselves. So that's definitely also a struggle. Yeah,
indeed. Yeah, the environment is not really set up for us to be our healthiest selves when
no.
it comes to this aspect, but also what you mentioned, nutrition, and stress, right? I mean, we touched upon that also a little bit briefly, but stress is also one of your 5 pillars, and also something that I think maybe every woman has actually experienced in their life one time or more, that when you're stressed, or you go through a really stressful period, that your period actually gets delayed. And so stress really has such an impact on our cycle health, but also just general health, like in general. So I love that you're paying, you know, a lot of attention onto stress as well. But I think stress and the environment might be 2 of the more difficult and big parts. But my favorite stress management tools are yin yoga, for example, and meditation, breath work, stuff like that. But also things like journaling are great for me. What do you like?
Yeah, so I think when we're going to address the stress reduction, sometimes it's going to be helpful to do the stuff like the meditation and the yin yoga. But also what I noticed with myself was that sometimes the stress trigger was coming from a deeper layer, like that meditation was not really helping that fully. Like it was also at the moment really helped me feel super more relaxed. So for me, in my healing journey of PCOS, also the trauma healing was a very big part. So, you know, this is a big topic, but I wanted to touch it a little bit to say like, okay, if you feel like you also tried everything here, like I am doing the yoga, I'm doing the meditation, I'm doing everything right, I think, why do I still feel triggered and stressed? Maybe it's a good moment to take a deeper dive in. How was your childhood? What are these kind of triggers? Where is it coming from? Right now, what I like to do to relax, for me, the sauna really helps so much. So warmth, like going into the bathtub, making like my own spa moment, or the sauna. One of my favorites, which always helps when I feel stressed or if I feel like my head is full, I have like a mat, like a spike mat.
Yeah.
Sounds a little bit cruel, but it's not like real spikes, but like there are some spikes that if you're gonna lay on it, it really touches the right spots on your nerve system. And in the beginning, you might feel like, oh, this is a bit painful. But when you lay there for more than 2 minutes, immediately I feel so much more relaxed, especially when I combine it with binaural beats. I listen them with headphones. So that's actually some sort of sound frequencies, and it's a different frequency coming from the left side and to the right side. And when you listen to it, it's actually they bump to each other in the middle of your brain, and that makes your brain super relaxed immediately. So this helps for me always. On moments that I feel like I need it, or if I had a busy day, or I want to start the day very peaceful, this is my way to go.
Oh, I love that. Maybe we can link in the show notes to those sound beats and also maybe
Absolutely, yes.
the mat that you're using. That would be amazing.
I created my own binaural beats
Oh.
Spotify list, because I noticed if you're going to look on Spotify, for example, relaxation binaural beats or sleep binaural beats, there are some songs in there that I'm like, oh, I get a little bit of a weird feeling from it. So I only got the good ones that makes you feel happy and relaxed.
Oh, that's
I can share it. Yeah, of
that
course.
would be super lovely. Nice. Yeah, you're touching on, trauma and deeper stress as one of the root causes to this, to PCOS or hormonal imbalances. And I think that we touched upon a few other root causes like insulin resistance and inflammation and stuff like that. But trauma or stress or things that you've been through in your childhood is definitely also a cause, or can be a cause, of the symptoms that you're experiencing. And I think that's also really, really interesting and something that you don't hear about a lot. It's not something that is being talked about really, but so indeed, if all these, I think these strategies that we just mentioned are great on a day-to-day basis, but indeed, like if you're ready for it and you feel that there might be something deeper underlying, then trying to get to the root of that as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Nice. So we've talked about all your 5 pillars. I think apart from maybe exercise, I think exercise is also one that is very important. Strength training can also help with this insulin resistance, right? So if you want to improve, if you have insulin resistance and you want to improve that, strength training is great to do. And in general, of course, strength training just comes with so many benefits. If you are someone who strength trains, I can just add that it's also really great to time your carb intake with your workouts. So for example, if you've just worked out, your body is much more capable to deal with the carbs, so they will go to the right places and being just used by the body in the right ways. So that's also one strategy, nutritional strategy, that you might be able to implement. Anything that you want to add about exercise otherwise?
Yeah, I think you already point out the most important one, is that also, if you want to lose weight and want to make your body more sensitive for insulin, is exactly moving first before eating. And that's also why I usually advise in the morning, try to do a small movement of a workout. It doesn't have to be like a huge one with heavy weights, but just go for a walk outside, run the stairs up and down for a little bit, or do some jumping jacks before you have breakfast. Because what happens actually there is that you not necessarily only need the receptors for the insulin to get the energy inside. Your cells produce another how to say, like components. It's called GLUT4, and that's like a taxi driver that will get the glucose in the cell anyway. So it's exactly what you said. Like if you had a workout before and eat carbs after, it's like it's more easy for your body to get energy from it. So and I'm a big resistance training girl. I think the benefits for your metabolism. So that's also if you are training your muscles and they are growing, that means that even in a state of rest, you're still burning calories, right? So that's also very big beneficial of resistance training. With all the other ones, like resistance training, building muscle makes the androgens, like the testosterone excess, get less. Also, it helps, it's producing a lot of anti-inflammatory cytokines, which is also very beneficial for PCOS. And also it helps improve like happy hormones as well, and a lot of other stuff. But also sitting breaks is also a very good one that I like to advise. Also, if like resistance training or going to the gym or heavy workout sounds like a little bit too far away for you right now because you are feeling very tired or whatever reason that might be, sitting breaks. Try to put an alarm on your phone every hour and stand up and try to raise your heart rate for at least 1 minute, do some jumping jacks, or something that is doable for you. And this is like beneficial for so many things in your body, also on a hormonal level, but on your bloodstream, your detoxification as well, because the lymph flow is also increasing. We are eating way too much for our body, so it also gives more space to your intestines. So, like, your digestion will improve. It will improve your energy levels. Yeah, it's maybe not really something that falls under heavy exercise, but it's super good to implement that.
Yeah, walking is, I think, the most underrated
Yeah,
way to exercise in general. And what you just mentioned now, like just getting up, standing up, doing some movement, maybe some
yeah,
body weight squats on the spot, or jog on the spot, or jumping jacks, indeed, definitely is super helpful. We almost forgot one of the most important ones, and I think that is getting some direct sunlight
yeah,
in the morning, preferably as soon as you wake up, but also just in general throughout the day. And that's where like taking some walks outside comes in very handy as well. But I know you're a big fan of getting some direct sunlight first thing in the morning to regulate your biorhythm, right?
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So what I said earlier in the podcast was that your brain needs to understand what time of the day it is, right? So how our brain function is synchronized with the light frequency that's coming from the sun. Makes sense because we are part of nature. I always like to explain, like, we are part of nature. So how does it usually work? And how is our environment right now? So when our brain gets the frequency, the light frequency of the sun, and we catch it with our eyes and with our skin, it will give the signal to the brain like, hey, it's 8 a.m. right now, or it's 1 p.m. right now. And that influences the production of hormones and the breaking down of hormones. Also, stress hormones, because your stress hormones should be a little bit higher in the morning and lower in the evening. The sun has a different light frequency every half hour of the day. So you can imagine that usually our brain, when it sees it's grasp the natural sunlight, which is unfortunately only possible when you're really outside. It's not working when you're standing in front of your mirror because it's blocking the light frequency. Then your brain knows exactly when, where, and what kind of hormone is on what levels. But we are exposed to a lot of different kind of light frequencies during the day. Our phone, for example, our screen, it's the light frequency that's coming from there is more bluish, and that is approximately 2 in the afternoon for a brain. So you can imagine if you wake up and you are inside, right? And the first thing you do is grab your phone, check your email, scroll a little bit on Instagram, or send some messages, that your brain would think, huh, but we just woke up. How can it be already 2 in the afternoon? It's like creating an error every time. So that's why I think the most powerful start of the day is to synchronize with the natural sunlight as soon as possible as you wake up. You can combine it with going outside for a walk, then you also have to exercise a little bit, but at least open a window and get your face outside and your neck outside for 2 5 minutes, so that your brain knows, okay, it's this time of the day, let's go. And you will see that your hormone levels during the day are so much better. It's even best if you have like other breaks during your day as well to go outside, but especially the start of the day is like a power boost of your hormones, and it's free, and it's easy. You can do it from everywhere.
Indeed, yeah. My favorite thing to do is either take a morning walk, or if I don't have the time for that, simply just open my window and stand there for
Yeah.
a few minutes, for as long as I have the time for. So definitely a good place to start as well if you don't know where to start. So we talked about all your 5 pillars. Now we've got so many great, I think, action points. So when it comes to nutrition, right, prioritize your protein, balance your plate with all macro and micronutrients. Protein first, veggies second, and carbs and healthy fats on top of that. Make sure you're eating enough. Focus on the quality of the food that you're eating. try to create this peaceful, happy body. I think that's the key with all your elements, right? So also with exercise, strength train a couple of times per week, take some walks outside, enjoy fresh air. Lifestyle factors such as what you just mentioned, synchronize with the morning sun or the daylight. What am I missing? The stress. Try to find some stress management tools that work for you to reduce the amount of stress that you experience. I think stress we're never gonna get away from it. It will always be there. But how can we actually take some moments to ourselves and de-stress every now and then, whether that is through those daily things or actually going a little bit deeper if we feel the need to. And of course, trying to eliminate the toxins that we are exposed to on a daily basis. Lots of things to get started on, one thing at a time, of course, but yeah, a lot of things there that can be super helpful to women with PCOS. But would you also recommend this to just any woman basically who wants to have a healthy cycle?
Absolutely, yeah. It's that PCOS is my expertise, but it's good for every woman. Yeah.
Yes. And anything else you want to add? Any last words from you? Anything we didn't touch upon?
Yeah, so I think if you are struggling with PCOS or fertility issues or hormonal issues, menstrual cycle issues, what I would like to add is that I think it's important to understand that there is nothing wrong with you and there's nothing wrong with your body. Your body always wants what's best for you. And right now, your body thinks it's best for you to, for example, don't have an ovulation or like that it is the best of the worst, options to have like a painful period, for example. So that your body is not the enemy, but that the solution is there. It is possible. So many things are possible, but it's important to understand your body a little bit and to understand where it's coming from and what your body needs. And if you feel lonely or if you feel sad about it, I completely understand that. I was in the same position, but try to find someone to talk about it. Try to find other people who understand what you're going through. If you need help, find someone you feel comfortable with that can help you. It's so important to not stick with these symptoms and also not stick with how you feel or think about yourself. There are a lot of solutions. And if you ever feel like you want to talk about it a little bit more, like I always say on Instagram, my DM is always open for everyone. So feel free to send me a message and I'm super happy to talk a little bit more about this if you want. Yeah.
Yeah, super nice. And I mean, I have firsthand experience working with you as well. I mean, you're, like you said in the beginning, a living proof that it's totally possible to live a symptom-free life and have a very healthy, well-functioning cycle. And we worked together for a couple of months as well and did great things together. And I cannot recommend you enough. I think that the work that you do is so great. And also because you do all these tests and you really do go to the root cause and address all these different factors. So for anyone listening to this, I mean, both of you and I are actually proof that you don't need to live like this. There are so many things that you can do to feel better and just feel happy in your body. And that is also, in general, but also weight-wise, like you can find a happy weight in a way that feels good for you and is working with yourself, not against yourself. And I think you said that very nicely. Your body is not your enemy. We need to befriend our body and try to or strive towards working as a team together because
Yes, exactly.
yeah, your body wants the best for you and there is a reason you have these symptoms or things that your body is telling you things and
Yeah,
we just need to listen and we need to start taking care of ourselves in a way that supports our female health, right?
exactly. Well said. Yeah.
Nice. So where can they find you? They can find you on Instagram.
Yes, so you can find me on Instagram indeed. My Instagram's name is Hormone Healing Hub. I have a website, I also have a YouTube channel where you can find more informational videos about PCOS and hormones, Hormone Healing Hub as well. Yeah, I think those are the main spots where I'm very active, and you can find me.
Perfect. So of course, I'll link all of this also in the show notes. And anyone who wants to get in touch can reach out to both you and myself for questions. I'm also more than happy to share more about my experience working with Daphne and also about my whole journey in general, because we didn't really touch upon that today, but I definitely am open to share more of my experience and my symptoms and things like that. So any questions to any one of us, just shoot any of us a message. My DMs are always open as well. And yeah, I think that's a wrap.
I think so as well. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for sharing your expertise and your wisdom with us. And yeah, thank
Very
you
welcome.
for the work that you've done with me and the work that you continue to do with all the women. Like I've said before, every woman should have a little Daphne in there. So
That's so
yeah,
nice. Thank you so
super
much.
important.
Thank you.
Good. Okay. Thank you.